welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. We are coming to you live. This happens real and live, and if you listened yesterday, you would understand that. Here we are, right? So today, let's go ahead and ground ourselves in our greatness. Yesterday, I think, was just normal-ish. And normal isn't really a great descriptor of any place that we're in, any place that we're going to be in any kind of new future. But yesterday, doing a normal activity, we would normally go get our tree, and even that looked pretty normal. There weren't all of the normal hustle and bustle. There definitely weren't Santa Claus visits and all of those things, but pieces of yesterday tradition felt very normal. And that felt amazing because a lot of the activities that we've been doing as of late haven't been normal at all. Similar, right? But definitely impacted. And so yesterday, one of our traditional activities around this time, around the holidays, felt pretty normal. And that's becoming a rarity for all things. And that's okay, right? This is just a part of the process, and hopefully we get through this and then life becomes normal. But my fear and knowing is that it isn't, and it hasn't, and it probably won't for a while. And so feeling something that hasn't been impacted felt really good yesterday. Felt almost normal, dare I say it. And that felt amazing beyond. So what do we do? How do we bounce back into a normal world, or how do we make things normal? And I wrote about this last week, and I think it's just nothing is. And so maybe nothing can be normal. Right? Yikes. And when I had that realization, it was just kind of sad, but then a little bit happy, and we're gonna talk about that today, let me tell you. But this feeling, this craving almost of wanting normal, of wanting normal school drop-offs, of wanting normal realities where it's any given thing is just safe. You could just walk into a store, you could not wear a mask, you could not question every move that you're making. Is it right? Is it wrong? Should I be leaving? Should I not leave? Should I shop online? Do I want to see people again? Can we do this virtually? Should we do this virtually? Are we allowed to meet? Can I give you a hug? Can I shake your hand? What? I don't remember the feeling of not questioning every move. And that's crazy, right? And I don't think anyone knows the appropriate reaction. And so for me, it's just been about allowing myself to feel full in whatever emotion it is that I'm feeling at that moment. So yesterday, the emotion and the relief of carrying out an entire activity in a normal fashion. It was pretty normal outside of having to wear masks in one of the buildings. It was very normal because most of it was just outside, right? We went and cut down a Christmas tree. Because most of it was outside, it was okay to be normal. And it just felt great because I didn't have to think. We left the house and I didn't really have to think all that much about it. And that felt amazing. And so that's my great thing. Feeling almost normal, which is rare for me lately. Go ahead and take time for yourself. Recognize yourself for your great things. I know that it's a tried and true time right now. I know for people, it's just so abnormal. It's hard to imagine what life is going to look like in a normal instance again. But we'll get back there, right? Someone, please tell me we'll get back. Please. I liked not thinking yesterday. And I want to do more of that. Please, let's go back. Okay. My kids went back to school yesterday and wow, them being able to do that, me being able to just work all by myself again, right? Not have to think about whether or not they should be doing school, whether or not I can figure out how they're supposed to do school, what they're doing if someone's sick, if they should be in this room. I don't know, but I am very happy that after a month, we're finally out of quarantine and the kids can go back to school. So that's a little bit normal again. Yay. Okay. Let's get into it. So today's topic is lovingly addressed as, can you appear as your whole self? And this has been something that I've struggled with. This was one of the reasons earlier this year that I honestly felt compelled to start talking about this idea that I wasn't allowed to show up as my whole self in any of the instances. And so knowing that I left that environment where that wasn't possible or it wasn't accepted or I had to show up as a percentage of myself and kind of gauge where full Hanna wasn't allowed to enter. Now here I am again questioning if it's okay for me. And as I'm trying to go back and heal from all of these past traumas, and that's what we talked about yesterday, as I'm trying to go back and heal and really enter those spaces and better understand, I'm starting to pick up on this clue, this idea that this emotional, full-on, dramatic person hasn't been allowed in a lot of spaces, right? And so one of the only spaces that person was allowed and celebrated really was athletics. And so I always gravitated towards those because it was really the first place where the fullness of myself was welcomed, right? And it kind of, brought out these gifts in me. And by kind of, I mean absolutely. And so I always gravitated towards there. And now that I'm trying to dig this up and really think through this, was it just my workplace? Was it just how I was told I had to show up? Was it just this idea of what success was? What led me to this place where I truly believed this whole person, as I present naturally in the world, wasn't allowed? And most of that really is my own narrative, my own things. But as I've been going through, I've realized that that's not just that working place, that Hanna, by and large, is this happy-go-lucky, positive person. And so that's the expectation of what people want and need from me. And so that's who I feel like I have to present all of the time, or people just turn me off, right? Because I'm really over dramatic. I always kind of self-heal. And so most people are just like, oh, okay, I'm not used to this negative emotion from you, and I'm going to need positive, happy Hanna back, because really that's the only person I want to participate with. And that's hard for any person who experiences that, who has these deeper feelings, who have been turned off by people for expressing and experiencing the fullness of their emotions, not just the side that people want to accept. And so, since I've always had this happy demeanor, really early on, that's what was accepted. And any time that I brought up the negative or the sad feelings, there really was this like turnoff of, no, Hanna, just keep moving. Just be happy. Just be grateful. Just be, words don't hurt. Like they only hurt if you let them hurt. You're bigger than this. You're stronger. Just be happy. Just keep moving. Move past it. Move past that negative emotion. Don't even let it touch you. And that was the main message. And I think, still to the core, to the root of what I've been told and what I've experienced is still that same thing. Just move past it. You'll get through it. You'll get through it. You'll get through it. Just stay positive. Just keep moving. And there's so much truth to that, but that's also not acknowledging the fullness of the emotion, right? And even when I started my podcast, that was very much my mantra, like, just keep moving. It's okay. You'll get through it. Just keep going. And while so much of that is true, like forward movement is essential, there's also this realization that we exist in both instances. It's not just happy Hanna that gets to go bounce along the streets. Happy Hanna comes with a weight. She isn't happy all the time, right? She isn't just bouncing through life, right? People who experience emotions, from what I'm reading and researching, people who experience emotions to the depth of which I experience them, right? Like, we aren't just happy. Like, we're exuberant. We aren't just excited. We're pumped beyond belief. Like, it's always an emotion amplified. I can't just feel like anything half. If I'm in, I am all the way in times infinity likely. And so that's such a blessing, right? Anything that I could go do, that you're going to get the fullness of who I am. And that's like a superhuman superpower, right? And so that's why it's been so essential for me to pull back and really fully understand what it is that I want to do and make sure that I'm putting a lot of intention behind any of those moves that I make, because there wasn't a lot of intentional movement before. The only intentional movement was in shielding myself from who I'd been told to protect myself from my entire life, right? Like, Hanna, you can't go out with all these emotions. You'll get chewed up. You won't be able to exist in this world. You can't be that person. So bottle it, right? Just go in as if you have no emotion at all. And even so, that started to become this narrative that I was telling people, this strength that I had, this ability to go in callous to any situation and handle it. And while there's no doubt that person would have been successful, that was a very small percentage of the person that I am capable of being. And the more that I shut those feelings out, the harder it was for me to cope with day-to-day life. Because I wasn't showing up as a whole. I was showing up as like 25% of myself. And so any chance that person got to experience the world, she would like run, which made a lot of my movements super compulsive, where it was like, oh my gosh, we're so into this. Let's go. We can do that. This is exciting. And I still have those moments. That really comes out of just passion, right? For any given thing, excitement for any given thing. But the reason that she acted in that way was because I didn't really give her any room to run. And I didn't fully acknowledge that there was any place for this person to exist in the world fully. And so I'm examining those trauma points. I'm trying to figure out where it came from and still doing more work with that, understanding like the root of that trauma is really important for me. And so I definitely still have more work to do with the understanding of my write-off of my empathy. Like, where did that come from? Why did I start turning that person off? Where did that initial blow come from? Why did I not believe that this person could exist successfully in the world? So I'm still examining that. But I think most importantly is understanding when you are showing up as a whole person, where are you allowed to show up? Who are you allowed to show up with? I've been testing those waters. Who are those people for me that accept happy Hanna? Which, like, we all want happy Hanna. Trust me. If you could ever have a more supportive, like, all-in friend who's going to push you to higher heights, who's going to, like, move you even when you don't want to move anymore, who's, like, your ultimate champion, it's happy Hanna. She's here for you. If you need someone like that, go ahead and just text me. Like, I'm here for that. On the other side is, like, sad Hanna, angry Hanna. Hanna who feels, let's see, what did I write in my journal today? It was real low. Hanna who feels alone. I feel alone, period. It is like I am yelling my sadness and people pass by it with a glance. My sadness has no place with the people I know. They do not give that space. I'm not allowed to be sad. I'm not allowed to feel. When I feel these things, I am alone. And no one wants me. And that's like, there's a deeper core to that. But I'm actively testing who responds and allows fullness. Full Hanna, and doesn't just write it off. And that's tricky, right? Because so much of my childhood and of just my life in the existing state that it's in really was built around this narrative that Hanna's this overly dramatic, super crazy feeler person. And I was always told that it was okay to be that person when it was that happy-go-lucky, passionate sports person. And then I was told that in the same instance, in the same extreme, that it wasn't okay to be that person when it came to sadness or drama, or like I was okay to feel those feelings when it was happy and passion and excited. That was perfectly fine. But I was not ever allowed to feel those feelings when it was sad or lonely or words or, like I could only be this one thing. And I have always just force myself to show up as that one thing for a majority of the people in my life because they don't know what it's like to experience this, Hannah. No one should know what it's like to experience this, Hannah. I'm sorry that all of you have had to experience this, Hannah, right? But it's obviously important because I can't just glance past and act like I'm not this extreme of a person when it comes to sad emotions. Like, you just heard what I wrote. For goodness sakes. Right? And that's where my head goes in response to even reading that, in response to even writing that. Like, really, Hannah? You feel you're surrounded by people. Like, just reach out to them. But been reaching out, been talking to people. And there is just this like glance feeling of, oh, Hannah will get over it. She's good. Let's just not go there because she's going to just wallow in the deepness of this and be overly dramatic as always. And she'll come out on the other side. So she's just being dramatic and trying to get attention. That's a pretty typical response, which is okay. That's been my life. That's who I am. And I have to, as I process and continue to grow as a person, I have to start allowing those feelings of negative energy in, and I have to allow them space. And we've been talking about that for a very long time. What does that look like? How do we even acknowledge and allow that? Because it would be great if I came on this podcast every day and I was like, rah, 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 you are awesome. You go do this. You can do it. I believe in you. If I believe in you and you're in this community, you're never going to fall short. You're going to have me every day. You're going to do this. And I wish that this was that podcast, and maybe someday it will be. But this is real. This is my real response to what's going on, to how I'm processing, to how I basically came back from me finally accepting that I had given up on my life. That I had pretty much just chalked this one up a loss, and I was just going through the motions. And I pretty much started recording on day one of me starting to make this change in my life, starting to dream again, starting to put myself back on the table of importance, right? Because it's real easy to remove yourself. I'm just saying. It's actually easier to just remove yourself from that table. So for me, it was just all about acknowledging that I belonged there at my own self-built table, but then fully allowing myself to understand, and I'm still understanding, who I am as a person and who I'm allowed to show up as. And I'm still experimenting with who I'm allowed to show up as. And it's not really about who allows me to show up as that. While I'm testing that, that's really just for self purposes of like, who can I go to when I'm experiencing these emotions that I can trust to not just glance them off as something that Hannah's just going to get over because that's just Hanna, right? I need someone to have those conversations. My husband is very much that person, but I probably need someone else. He can't take all of the weight of this, right? And it's such a strange line to walk, because when you are that person for people, the one who's excited and happy, it can be really hard for them to understand that while you have the beauty and depth of that emotion and that ability to experience things to that level, that also means that you have those same exact depth points when it comes to experiencing the flip side of that. And so I'm just testing to figure out who who can be those people when I experience those things, because it doesn't go away. You don't just like one day you're like, okay, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to write some motivational quotes. You know what? I'm going to post some of those quotes. I'm going to feel the emotions of these things. Like, I'm going to get through this. And while that is a very vital part, I believe the other part, and this has probably been the most important part of the work for me doing this podcast, has been allowing myself to feel those negative emotions. Because for me, my whole life, I was just told to like find a quote, get through it, you're good. Don't feel it. Don't let it touch you, right? Words can never hurt you, except for they do. And so we have to allow ourselves to go back and process the emotions that maybe we weren't always allowed to feel. And so for me, I just have so much pent up negative energy that I maybe never got to process, because happy Hanna, people want happy Hanna. Trust me, I want happy Hanna. She is all things necessary in life. But happy Hanna doesn't operate solely. Happy Hanna has depths. Happy Hanna takes a lot of work to keep that train moving. And so, when I write that my sadness is just a glance, it's because that's what I was told it was allowed to be. We could bring it up, but then all we could give was like oh, hey, that sucked. Bye. Right? And I have to learn to experience sadness differently, right? I can't just always put this optimistic, happy view of it. I have to allow myself to experience the fullness of that emotion. We can't just boom, process it and move on. Like, I have to allow myself, like I'm going to just be crying every day, but like if I need to cry about it, that's what I need to allow myself to do. It's okay. Let's say it again. It's okay. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay. Like, this whole process has just been really low in learning and in working with what I shall now term my shadow self, right? And fully understanding the full depth and breadth of that person. It wasn't just always like clean, happy Hanna. In fact, it never was. But that's really all I allowed myself to feel. That's really all I was told to feel, because this is such a great thing that I am naturally this way and happy and excited and passionate, and most people aren't like that. And so I should just be grateful that I am, and like share in this energy source, like take that out. And I would be remiss to take that person to all of you and just come on this podcast and be like, rah, 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 like, let's get through this. Let's just share the things, and not also bring you the depth of the work that I have to go through on a personal level to allow myself to fully navigate this world, not just a piece of me. And when I started this work, that was my commitment. Like, first and foremost, no one here is going to just experience the happy, exciting side of changing your life, of living your dreams. You get it all. And secondly, I'm not going to just glance over the sad parts of this. I'm going to feel them, because full Hanna needs to come out, and full Hanna isn't just happy Hanna, right? So I want you to allow yourself to not just have glancing sad moments. If you need time, take it. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.